far-right extremists. Maurice, do you think they're more frightening than asylum seekers in hotels? Because I do.
Well, I'm neither. So let's take it from that point.
Okay.
I am now living in a country which is no longer mine because we're full of people now.
Where are you in the country? In Peterborough and Cambridgeshire?
Yes, I am.
Oh.
We are full of people now who were not born here, who shouldn't be here. And
why shouldn't they be here? Hold on, Maurice. Explain that thinking.
Well, excuse me. You interrupted me there, Rachel. So I strongly feel that we didn't keep the borders closed properly to the absolute hordes of people who have flooded into this country over the past multiple years, encouraged by the Blair government to start off with. They opened the borders and, well, with all due respect to any politician, and very few of them deserve any respect anyway, we are now in a state of siege by our services. Everything is destroyed by the level of immigration in this country.
Okay, so how has your services been destroyed by immigration, Maurice? I mean, please, don't just throw out inflammatory statements like that without setting out your case a bit more. So, are you essentially though pinning the blame for it on the expansion of the EU and the fact that we opened our borders to Poland, Hungary, wherever else, what were the other countries that came in that first wave of expansion in 2008 or so, 2004 or so? I can't remember now.
Well, none of us can remember really, but the EU was always wrong anyway. If we go back to the history of that, then that was totally wrong because none of us voted to be in the control of Brussels by non-elected bureaucrats. We were never given a choice on that, were we? If you want to go back in the history.
Yes, you were. There was a confirmatory vote there was a confirmatory referendum in 1974, wasn't there?
No, not.
Yes, there was. And it was a 70% majority or 65% majority. Come on, Andrew, why don't you join this? I mean, Maurice says the country has been destroyed first by being part of the EEC, latterly the EU, and also by waves of immigration that were the Tony Blair's fault. What do you think?
Benefit number one is economic growth. And it has huge benefits. And people who object to migration because of all the strain it puts on our services ignore the fact that our services will be much better funded with greater economic growth, which would be caused by greater migration.
The country is in crisis, and we are not getting better by having thousands and thousands of people crossing the channel wrongly because they should never be allowed to leave France. If they are proper
Maurice, I agree.
Refugees.
Look, I found a point of agreement with you. I agree that having 60,000 migrants from Albania or another safe country is not right, and it's not fair on this country to have to deal with the long tail of those arrivals, the cost and so on, and the drain on services. You're right. I mean, and I think this is going to determine Rishi's future, and actually probably the future of the Tory government come the next election.
They're sunk without trace, actually, because, they are sunk without trace. They have no leadership, whatever. There is a so-called prime minister. Well, I say, so what? And if anything, I have been a lifelong Conservative, but the disposal of Boris Johnson was the death knell on the Conservative Party, in my view.
Well, you probably have a lot of sympathy for Nadine Dorries, who's been talking.
No, I think she's been
making
fairly
that point.
stupid.
Okay.
She's been fairly stupid anyway,
Well,
so I'm not bothered about Nadine.
Maurice, I'm going to give the last word to Andrew in Acton. Thank you for your call. Andrew, what's your last word on Maurice's position?
Yeah, I just really want to pick you up on what you said to him, that you agreed that the country shouldn't have to deal with what you call the long tail of migration. But Rachel, you're not addressing my point, which is that the net economic cost, that there is no net economic cost of migration. Migrants produce more money than they cost. And therefore, there isn't actually a long tail cost. There's a long tail profit from migration.
Only if they're dealt with promptly. I take your point. Yes, I think in terms of growth, they are a net benefit to the economy, and I agree with you on that.